Hello, my name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and this is the first session of a quarterly of Masks, a new generation that I'm calling Masks Extinction. And I've run Masks a lot. It's one of my favorite PBTA games. I think it's got a lot of really interesting things going on in it. I've got a slightly different setup in terms of the world that we're going into. We've got some framing things that we're going to be playing with. We're also going to be using some additional playbooks. There are some really interesting third-party playbooks that are available on itch. I will put links in the show notes for that for people who are interested in that. I think I said my name. Well, pronouns he, him. Hey, I've got a bunch of videos on this channel. So if you, including many masks videos. So if you like this, either listening to this or watching this, please check out that channel. I have a Patreon that supports the website that I do, which includes links to the APs as well as blog posts and so on. So I'm going to walk through our HATS document, which is the way that we set up the premise, gives us our baseline for what we're going to be working with. I will go over just little bits of it when Kay comes in, but I want to go over what the baselines are that we are working from. So this is Masks, which is a game of young supers, late teens, early young adults, that kind of thing, who are dealing with questions of responsibility. They're dealing with questions of identity, conformity, justice, and all of those kinds of things. They are living their lives and trying to come to terms with what it means to be a super being, to have these powers. By and large, we are, for the most part, playing that classic Masks, which is about exploring the stories of those lives. They do super things. They're involved in titanic battles, but they're also slaves to their home lives and their personal foibles and all of that kind of thing. So that's classic Masks. We are doing a slightly shifted, slightly modified setup for that, which is inspired by the RPG Base Raiders by Ross Payton, also by Planetary, and other kinds of games that have a kind of a skewed approach and certainly a smaller number of supers. Basically, the premise is that a few months ago, certainly less than a year, we can kind of figure out how the time frame feels for us when we get to collaboratively creating things. An event occurred. Classic superhero event, lightning, weird atmospheric phenomena, the skies turning purple. But in the midst of that, in a flash, the vast majority of super beings, heroes, villains, in between, and that includes just skilled people, the Batman variety to Superman style heroes, vanished, gone. Now, things had occurred like this before, events, but never at this scale, and never with no news, no warning, no sense of what is going on months down the road. No idea. No one is certain how this occurred, what happened. And the world has shifted. It's a world that had decades of superheroes, a long legacy, a history of them, and now just gone. Some remained. The few who remained were the D-listers, the lowest powered folks who had suffered injuries, persons who had been depowered by events, figures who had retired, and the younger heroes. As I said, this changed the complexion of the world. dramatically. And in the months since then, people have been trying to figure out what the kind of the new order of things is, in terms of, who are the heroes who are around, who are the villains, how are we going to interact with these things? And new heroes have emerged. Maybe some supers who've returned, that weren't present on the planet have come back, maybe shifted from other dimensions or whatever, or were in suspended animation. But also, people have gotten powers. Maybe that's what's happened to your characters, is that you have discovered your powers in the time since then. What has become a thing that people have begun to realize is that some of these people who are appearing with powers, they're doing this because they have found things. They have found all of the toys and labs and ancient texts and Toma the Vishanti and those kinds of things that have been left behind by the vanishing of all of these super beings. A lot of them in hidden layers and bases and things. And there has become kind of an underground of people hunting for these things, searching for them, hidden away in markets, finding secret places, passing along information on the internet about possible super serums, all of that kind of things. And that's kind of the background of one of the pressures that's going to be facing our characters in this world, whether it's that you want to do this kind of hunting, maybe you need it to increase your powers or to answer your questions, but you may also be dealing with people who are not ready for it, who are getting these powers, of finding these places, finding these resources, and dealing with them. So that's our big picture concept for the game. Still a mask game, still about our characters and our characters' lives interaction, but we've got this other thing that's going on in the background. So our approach is we're going to be doing today character creation, which means choosing our playbooks, making the picks within those playbooks. The playbooks have, besides the mechanical picks for your labels, which are your stats and your powers, there are various backstory questions. There are relationship questions. There are when our team first got together questions. Those are things we're all going to be going through here. And after we've picked playbooks and we get to that process of doing that, I'll tell you where you're going to work towards in that. But we're also going to be talking about like where your characters were when this event occurred. Like, did you have your powers yet? What was your experience? What was your interaction with that? We're going to be talking with you and collaboratively coming up with some ideas about who are other survivors that might be the adults that you have to interact with in our particular setting. Because, of course, the premise of Masks is that adults tell you what to do. Whether they're powered adults or non-powered adults, they have this authority that you have to deal with. We'll also be coming up with a team of rivals for you. So we'll be coming up with who are your the super team, villainous or otherwise, that opposes you. And of course, we'll talk about like what your daily lives look like. Our city is called City of Ocean. It is a West Coast city. Here's what we know about it. It's a West Coast city that's kind of in that sort of mid-California range. So we've got access to the deserts, to the mountains, to forests. It's kind of situated that in many directions, a variety of climes. It's a city that suffered a massive, a devastating supervillain attack in the 60s or 70s at some point. And the city rebuilt from that. And this is a very high-tech wired city. Things are automated. There is speedy public transport. There's a whole network system. There's a city app, all of that kind of thing. If you know anything about some of the advances that have happened in like Seoul and other South Korean places where they've really integrated a lot of the modern internet and electronics and things into daily lives, that's the kind of city that we're dealing with. Beyond that, that's the only thing I'm giving as a premise. We'll figure out more about the city. We'll be collaboratively coming up and adding details to that. But I want to provide that frame to what we're doing. So we'll probably be just doing this session 0 today, but we'll see. We may get to some starter scenes within that. Our approach to play is going to be setting up situations generated by yourselves or your desires, what it is that you want, or by a situation that throw you in, and then we play out from that. We will at least once in the course of this quarterly do a delve into effectively a dungeon for this. At least one point, we'll be using a modified version of the kind of the Into Labyrinth move from Dungeon World and adjusting that a little bit. So that's the approach. That's what play is going to look like. This is a quarterly, so we got plenty of time to develop characters, to come up with NPCs, and to enrich the story that we're telling. We talk about tone. This is a mask game. It is a modern comics game, but not gritty. This is it can have some darkness to it, but it is not truly dark. It is not the Titans TV show, which is my thing, or The Boys, or anything along that line. My tone guidelines, my signposts for this are Young Justice, the animated series, Runaways, tone-wise, the various CW Supers television series, I would say, fit into this. Young Avengers, these are all kind of touchstones of the tone that I would aim for. But, we may not all be familiar with those touchstones, and we may have different ideas about what those touchstones mean. So we are using a layered set of safety tools. I'm going to go through those briefly, though I know I've played with all of you before. I know that you're familiar with these, but I do want to go through. First of these is the lines, fails, and ask first. For me, lines are hard lines. These are things we're just not going to have as topics or events that are going to appear on screen. So we mark those as hard lines. Veils are things that we're less interested in. They can occur, but we're going to see them off stage, or we're going to elide the mention of them. They are not going to be focal point. We're not going to deal with them in depth at all. It's a way to mark out something that might get mentioned, but we don't dwell on it. And then ask first is kind of another thing. Like I want to check in before we do this kind of story. That's often for issues of betrayal or certain things like that. So we have that as a third option. That helps establish a baseline that we can work from. To complement that, we also use the X card. X card is an active monitoring device. You can say X card, or you can do the X card gesture. X card is used when we hit material that you find problematic, that you find objectionable, that you find wildly off tone, that you're uncomfortable with. And the X card means that we'll stop, we'll step back to a good point before that, and we'll move forward without that particular content present. The only question we might ask you is exactly like where we need to step back to cut to get to where we're going. The important thing for me about the X card is that you never have to defend that choice. You never have to explain. You don't feel the pressure to do that. You can just say, I would like to X card that. If you wish to explain, if you wish to tell us about why, you are welcome to, but you are absolutely not required to. That is really important. Any of your safety choices, you never have to defend or explain when we're going through this. One of the common places that will watch out for a possible place to use the X card is if we get to play and things are clicking along and we've got a scene pacing going, and you see that maybe what's going on storyline wise is actually starting to tilt towards a line or maybe even a veil. The X card is also a place to stop and say, hey, I think we're heading towards this, that maybe we should calibrate. We should be aware of that. The X card is useful for that as well. Last thing I'll say about the X card is if something has occurred in the game and the first couple of times you've been like, okay, I'm fine with that. But then later on, you're not fine with it. It remains legit. You can X card something that maybe has already occurred a few times in the game. It never like goes off your table. That ability is never negated for you. I would also mention that the X card is a good way to calibrate us if you find someone's play style is aggressive or is bumping up against your autonomy or your play. That's a good place to ask us to stop and recalibrate. The last of the safety tools that we'll be using is open door. Open door for me means that if you need to leave for whatever reason, like you're not feeling well, you're not into it, you look over and you see that the dog has something in its mouth and you don't know what it is. These are all reasons to open door and step away. It'd be great if you could tell us that you're going to be back or not back, but you're not required to. This can happen. Power outages are a common open door, especially once we get into certain weather systems. The other thing about open door is if we get to playing and we get a session or two or maybe even more down the line and you realize that this is not the game for you, it is legit to open door. And you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to defend your choice. Maybe sometimes a game isn't clicking for you. It isn't what you want at that moment. But it's really important to me that nobody sticks around and plays in a game that they're not enjoying. You should never feel that weird social contract of, well, I signed up for it. I better stay with it. You shouldn't have to do that. I should also mention that if you have issues that you want to discuss about play style, about safety, or things like that, you can always contact me, and I'm willing to discuss those privately. This is a living process, so our lines, veils, and ask first may evolve as we're going along here and may adjust. So that's all my safety talk. Now I'm going to take a long swig of water. So our next thing to discuss is what playbooks we're interested in. If you have a strong particular sense from the body of books that I offered up, or if you've got a few that you're interested in, that you're kind of thinking about, we can kind of get that on the table. We're kind of bat this around because I definitely do want to get this out and not move any further until we get Kay here with us. But I'd like to kind of poll the table and see what people are thinking about. At risk of posing an open question to the table, does anyone have a strong sense of a playbook or a number of playbooks that you're like, any of these would be cool. Okay. Chris.
I'll jump in. I have an itch to play the Relic, the Delinquent, and let's see, what was the other one? I had a list in my head, and then
Sure.
and maybe the Ace.
Maybe the Ace. Okay.
One of those three. All of those have some interesting stuff. I thought about the Inheritor, but it's really close to the Legacy, and I played one of those before.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that we did that in that last game. Let me take a quick look at the Relic to remind myself of what.
I'm gonna do some time travel nonsense with you again. Is
Okay.
what that means.
Okay. So this is where you come from the past to the future. Okay.
Right.
That's an interesting
I've
one.
done the Harbinger. Now I'm going to hit you with the Relic or the Delinquent, depending on if
Okay.
anybody else has a hard line that they really want to jump in with the Relic.
All right. And we will once we kind of gotten some playbooks picked too, we may do a little conversation about things we want to see more of or less of. Marla, you've played Mask before. Do you have some sense of maybe what you'd like to play this time?
Yeah, I was kind of interested in the attached, depending on how the friend kind of worked out. But I figured as we spin up the world, a friend will jump out at me as being fun to play with. Sort of toying with the idea of that being a ghost,
Oh,
possibly connected with the greater plot of people disappearing or something like that.
that's an interesting
Um,
idea.
yeah, I thought it might be interesting. Yeah, I don't want to shift this to horror, but I think we can get a little spooky.
Okay, yeah.
Um, if for some reason that doesn't play out, the Transformed or the Witch were also kind of looking interesting to me.
Okay. Joe, uh, if you've had a chance to look through if any of these like appealed to you particularly.
Yeah, originally I thought the witch sounded cool, but then I noticed it actually wasn't in your list. So, um, but also the reformed or the doomed, those were the three that I was kind of interested in.
Okay. I did put the witch in the playbook collection, so I think it is meant to be on the list, but it is a little complicated. And you said the reformed or the doomed, the other ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two good ones. The doomed is really interesting because its shtick of the doom clock that it has actually works very well in a quarterly. Whereas usually when people play a 4-shot or a 6-shot, that it's harder to get that pressure on there. But that's a situation where that can work a little bit better. So let me go back up. Well, those are all good. Let's do this because I am a little stuck. I'm going to pause the recording here, and maybe we can just kind of chat until we can get Kay in here. So I'm going to pause that. So Kay, what are you thinking?
So I would be lying if I said several did not appeal to me. I don't necessarily have an order,
Okay.
but the Relic, the Inheritor, the Legacy, the Delinquent, and the Transfer all are like very appealing, to be honest. I think as we all narrow it down, it'll be helpful because it'll help give like a shift of dynamics of who might, per se fit a little better or help
Sure.
seed a niche.
Okay. So Chris, if I were to come to you and say right now, you've mentioned the Relic a couple times, is that the one you're leaning towards?
That's my strongest lean.
Okay.
Like I love literally every playbook in Math and pretty much all of the third party ones too.
One moment.
So I'll super play any playbook.
So I'm asking you, like if you had to commit right this second, what would you say?
Relic.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna say relic, and if you decide to change your mind, we'll do that. But let's kind of lock that for the moment. Marley, uh, what what are you thinking? Like, which one do you leaning towards?
Yeah, since no one else is calling it, I'll go for attached.
Okay. So relic attached. Joe, what about for you?
Oh,
If you decide to go with the witch, we will help you out with that too. So don't worry about the complicated stuff there if that's put you off.
then it's the witch.
Okay. We will help you out and get that set because I am excited to see that as a third party book and to see how it works. So we'll get you set on that. All right. So
Yeah, I also wanted to point out, like, if it was mostly that you want to build a spellcaster, we might be able to build that off of a different playbook if that's if it's that particular set of mechanics that's off-putting to you.
No, no, not at all. I actually, it was the one I was most drawn to, and
Oh, okay.
I can't exactly explain it. It was just kind of, it leapt down at me because to me, it was the least superhero-y of the sort of like classic, because I'm not a big like classic superheroes guy. I kind of like the non-standard type, at least in my head, what I would say is non-standard. So
absolutely. I
Okay,
think
rock on.
yeah. Awesome. So with those picks in mind, Kay, does that help you narrow at all what you're thinking?
I think it does. I'm just reading through the transfer again really quickly. I think, yeah, so I think I can obviously, the relic is no longer on the table. Sorry, that's like my biggest thing is I'm like the worst at picking. There's so many good playbooks. So I'll rule out, I think that narrows some of it down to the legacy, delinquent, and the transfer.
Okay.
Knock two of those out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you think on that, but we are going to go
Go forward, yeah.
Go forward. So on the character keeper, if you go to the player characters tab and choose a column and set the drop down to the playbook that you've chosen, some things will get filled in for you automatically. Down there, you'll see. So basically, I want to set you loose on, setting your labels to the starting and then making the adjustments, making those choices about look, ability, moves, those kinds of things here. I think particularly for the witch, you can put those like pick like one of those move boxes, like figure you use those to do the forms that you have.
So the witch isn't in the drop down, not that I'm seeing, unless
Oh, it
I'm
isn't.
missing something.
Oh, and let me see here. Let me make sure.
I've complicated things already.
I apologize. Edit in the book. Okay, let me check my data sheet here. Data. Yes, I actually may have to have you go back because I did not put the witch in. I apologize. I apparently put it in the PDF and then I didn't get it in the thing. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If I make you now swerve to a different pick?
Yeah, so I'll just do the reformed.
Okay.
My second choice.
All right. So relic attached and reformed. I am so sorry about that.
That is quite all right. If that's the worst thing that happens to us today, then we're doing awesome.
Awesome. So yeah, the only thing lets you loose on working on those things. Once everybody's gotten the basics of that, we will have introductions done, and then we'll do those relationship questions and influence questions. And now I am going to shut up for a while and let you loose on this. And I am going to pause the recording while we're doing this process. Okay, so I have sat here quietly and drank both of my beverages, so I had to go to get a third one. And our players have made up their characters. We're going to go around and have characters do their introduction, tell us about who they are. We're going to talk about the backstory questions, all of those kinds of things, and kind of flesh these things out. So, Chris, let's start with your character, our relic.
Okay. I'm playing Januzim Hader, hero named Skirmish. He is the relic. He is from an ancient time before recorded history. He arrived in the modern age after destroying a sorcerous relic of unknown origin in order to prevent an evil warlord from using it. And he is stronger, faster, better as far as physicality and physical abilities. He also has impossible fighting skills and superhuman senses. The age he comes from would be most closely identified, I think, with a sort of a sword and sandal style, style fantastic world. And he has no idea how it connects with modern history or modern notions of recorded history. He has yet to really find any connection in the short time he's been back.
Okay. And tell us about, you've got some interesting stuff with the kind of extras / moves that you have for your character.
Yes, he starts out with ancient wisdom, which is when he applies lessons from his time and his previous life to a modern situation. He can change the label he uses to roll any other move. If he messes that up, it means he's less adaptable than he thought, and he gets more dumbfounded and confused by modern times. But if it fits, then he is suddenly has a little more insight on how the modern world's supposed to work, and he does much better. Because he is a warrior, his other moves involve fighting, and because of a lot of ancient traditions of his culture, he also can do something called invoking the old rite, which is calling upon ancient laws and forgotten pacts to make strange and make unspecified demands of particular individuals or entities. The move is sort of vague on that point, and I figure that might be something fun to explore.
So what does he look like? Are we talking a teen or are we talking a young adult? What are you imagining?
I'm thinking late teen, like 16, 17, somewhere in that neighborhood. And provided some AI generated images sort of give the basic idea. Like he looks a little wild. Like there's a physicality to him that I think makes him feel a little awkward around others. He's got like just massive curly hair, and very light beard, which he is a little self-conscious about because in his culture he's supposed to have a better beard by this point.
Okay.
And it doesn't. It feels like he's missing something. He tends to wear practical or casual clothing when he's just being normal. His hero outfit is archaic. He tends to wear stuff that he feels would be armory or battle wear from his time. So it tends to be stuff like tunics, like a cuirass of some sort, and footwear. He tends to go with sandals, which can be awkward and off-putting sometimes, but that's what he's most comfortable fighting in. So he tends to gravitate towards that for his costumes.
Okay. I do have one thing I want to say, because actually we had this conversation with Tyler before when he did his character from the distant past. One thing I do want to leave out is any of the like gender role stuff or archaic sexism or anything like that. If that's a trope I definitely want to leave to the side. He, him for pronouns, you
Yes.
said? Okay. So let's look at your backstory questions. Tell us about those.
Okay, going back to those, let me page it down a little bit. The first is, what time did I come from and how did I get here? He comes from a time before recorded history at the end of something that he remembers being called the Empire of the Red Sands. It was basically a time of heavy warfare in the area where he lived, which he most closely identifies with the modern sort of Middle East, going into maybe northern India, but he's not really sure about that because the maps are odd to him.
Okay.
But he arrived in the modern age after destroying that artifact or relic that he thought the Crimson Emperor warlord person was going to try and use for some sort of personal apotheosis. So.
Okay.
Secondary, the next question. Injustice seems to be the only thing that hasn't changed. What did you fight, and why are you willing to fight it still? He fought to protect the vulnerable from those who would abuse them, and that particular dynamic has not changed with the advent of modern civilization. So it still seems to be something that he sees as necessary. Who outside the team knows you're from another era and is helping you acclimate to your new home? It's another time lost fellow, a guy named Guarna, who is a retired and depowered former demigod of a lost culture who has been living in modern times for about the last 100 years. And he's been sort of giving him tips on how to adapt to how things are done nowadays. And he has also kind of shares that little perspective that Yanu has that kind of lets him give slightly better advice than maybe others might give him.
I like that. So we'll definitely have to have you get a picture for Guarna and put him in the NPC tab.
And what do I most love most about the New Age, and what do I miss the most? Modern medicine is awesome. It's a marvel, but he does miss the sort of communal spirit that he felt in his original village. Like that sort of like, we're all in this together because the world is hostile, and it's we've got to work together to survive it. And it's harder to get that feeling for him, at least in modern times.
And why do you care about the team?
It's from his perspective, it's pretty simple. Basically, these people have joined me in battle. They've been with me in peace. We've eaten and drunk together. My people may be gone, but these are my family here and now. So that's how he views it. He has a influence situation that is weird. He has to choose closed or embraced. And I think based on my answers to the questions, I think he has embraced his team. So he's going to give influence to pretty much everybody.
Okay, yeah, and we'll set that when we do the relationship questions there. How long ago did he arrive? Did he arrive before the event? Did he arrive after the event?
I think it sounds like the event was only about maybe 9 months ago,
9
something
months
like
ago.
that. So I think he probably has been here a little bit longer than that, but not much. Like he had just figured out what had happened to him. Maybe he'd been in the modern world for maybe a couple of months before it happened. So he just enough time to figure out what the heck was going on, and then boom,
World changed. Are you imagining him living with Guarna, or is he living on his own, or staying in whatever base you end up with? Like, how do you imagine his day-to-day life?
I suspect that he had been living with Guarna for a while. If the team ends up having a base, I suspect he would just gravitate to living there, because it would bring him closer to this group that he's sort of embraced. So if the team doesn't have an active base, he would probably be still staying with Guarna most of the time. If we do have an active base, he'll probably stay there.
And how do I put this? Like, he has no real secret identity, does he?
No,
Okay.
he doesn't wear a mask. Now, like whether somebody will recognize him going down the street in regular clothes or not might be a question. But like, he doesn't try to actively conceal his identity.
Is he using a weapon?
He occasionally like will pick up things and use them, but mostly he's fighting barehanded.
Okay.
He's it's not a martial artsy sort of like flowing style or anything. It looks a lot like brawling, but it's a lot more specific. I'm thinking something like something like a no holds barred sort of Pancration style, like just basically a really controlled brawl. Nothing pretty, lots of hurt.
Okay. So we will, once we've got everyone introduced, we'll come back. We'll talk about influence. We'll talk about relationship, and we'll talk about the sort of when our team came together questions that are all there. That brings us to Marley. Marley, tell us about your character.
Sure. I am playing the attached, real name Summer Cantero, superhero name Ghost Girl and Boo. She's haunted fundamentally. And so she is attached to a ghost, or what she thinks is a ghost. It's all really clear. These things don't come with manuals.
Mm-hmm.
She is a normal high school student. High femme type person, really likes picking out her outfits, always very put together. So when the extinction happened, that's when this sort of ghost thing appeared to her and was trying to very urgently tell her something about the extinction. And of course, it was all happening in real time, so she doesn't know what's going on. At this point, she doesn't know that the heroes are all about to disappear. So this ghost knows something about what happened. Her parents asked her who she was talking to, because all of a sudden she starts talking loudly in her room, and she jokes that she's talking to her boo, because like a significant other slang term. But yes, also she's talking to a ghost. So the name Boo kind of stuck. The ghost does not remember their name. They don't know their gender. They're trying to, and also their memories really soon started to fade. They knew a little more about what was going on right at first, and now they can't remember. So the attached always has a hunger, always has something that they are looking for. So I was thinking maybe that would be their memories and identity. If we can do something that abstract.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Going down the list,
Yeah.
abilities. I was thinking she could see like sort of supernatural stuff, like auras and other ghosts and things like that. I wasn't sure if we should build that as enhanced senses or tactical awareness, but that was sort of my thought.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And I was also thinking her other one was a sonic roar. So the Banshee's wail, she's got the canary cry kind of thing going on.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
You've described her dresses very well in her high school thing. Like, what does her like superhero outfit look like?
I have not fully thought that through, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's a bit over the top. It's something she put a lot of effort into. But yeah, I haven't really, like, on the one hand, it's like maybe it's a really dramatic cape, but on the other hand, maybe that's too old school, or maybe she's trying out a couple of different looks still.
Okay. No, I think that's fair.
I also wasn't sure if it's cool. I was thinking the ghost could actually be invisible.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like she's talking to herself all the time.
Yeah. And we might have, effect moments where you can describe like other things that people do see of it, so we can kind of play around with those details.
Yeah, that's totally cool. Also, once we get to moves, one of them is merge,
Okay.
which I think we could play as sort of like a possession, and that I think involves the hovering and the glowing eyes and the creepy aura and stuff like that. So very clear something is going on with that.
Awesome. So you've got that, and you've got the another one.
Yeah, lookout is the base move for the attached. So basically, um, the Boo can take a hit um, for the first hit of every scene, every session,
Every
every
scene, I
scene.
think. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Nice. Thanks, Boo.
And we've got the hunger. That's
Mhm.
something that generates an effect. We roll to check on that, and there are things that it wants that you kind of need to deal with. So that's very cool. Tell us about your backstory.
1 second. So yeah, the backstory. I mentioned how they met. So Summer thinks Boo is a ghost of one of the extinct superheroes. Totally thinks this is a good guy. That is why she is helping them unquestioningly. We that may or may not turn out to be true. But that's what she thinks is going on. Marley is fine for a range of answers to that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so the thing that sort of threatens a relationship is, yeah, this is a little parasitic because, like, having a ghost possess you, like letting a ghost possess you, is traditionally bad, but it's the ghost of a superhero, so it's all good, right? Maybe, probably, surely it is. Yes, a little unclear. Um, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Um, how the friend changed since you met. Yeah, as I mentioned, they know something about the extinction, but they've forgotten. They have ghosts apparently can't hang on to memories very well, at least as far as we can tell. We don't know a lot about ghosts. Also, Summer didn't have powers before this. So that is sort of what kicked all this thing off. So Summer went from being like a normal mundane person to someone who can see things and do things. Um,
Yeah. And why do you care about the team?
Care about the team because, all the superheroes are gone, so someone has to like step up, and apparently that's us. At least for now, because someday Boo's going to figure out their stuff and leave and presumably take their powers with them, which Summer has feelings about, but that's how it needs to be, right? So yeah.
So what are you imagining for her family, like home life? Say high school, parents, married, divorced, some other status.
Yeah, I imagine, living at home with parents. Let's call her an only child.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of a fairly supportive home life. I don't think she tells them about this whole ghost situation,
I was,
though.
yeah, that was my next
That was a
question.
little. She thinks that's a little weird. And also, surely it's all going to resolve itself, so she doesn't have to, or that is how she rationalizes it.
What is she afraid will happen if she tells her parents?
Um, that they're not going to want her to go do the whole superheroing thing, and also she's a little bit. I think also subconsciously she knows that like letting a ghost possess you just seems really off, and she thinks that's going to really upset her parents, and possibly for good reason, but she doesn't want to deal because teenager. So.
Absolutely. All right. All right. I think that gives us some good stuff to work with. We'll come back to you on the relationships and influence questions.
Cool.
That brings us, I'm going to skip because we talked about this. I'm going to skip over Joe. I'm going to go to Kay as best you can with the noise in the background. Is that okay?
Yeah, just let me know if you guys can hear it or if it's too bad.
Okay.
So my character's hero name is Ephivos, or Alexandros Kolonothos III.
Okay.
He is our legacy. His look is male, Polish Greek, godlike beauty, traditional clothing, traditional costume, but he's got no insignia on his costume, which is a little strange at his age.
Okay.
His abilities are mythic might, godlike beauty, and legendary speed. So he's missing the armor and the legendary weapon.
Okay.
The moves I have chosen for him are the symbol of authority, which is when you give an NPC an order based on the authority they recognize, aka the legacy. Roll savior on a hit, they choose one, do what you say, get out of your way, attack you at a disadvantage, or freeze. Never give up, never surrender. When you take a powerful blow from someone with far greater power than you, use this move instead of the basic move, and I get to add my savior, and it gives me a couple of different opportune things to use depending on how. So, I guess I'll hit my extras first.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm really curious what the legacy is like.
Yeah, so your legacy is important. Cal City, name the different members of your legacy, at least two. So they sort of have this very Greek god inspired legacy. In the background, his family background kind of goes all the way to ancient Greece. It can be like traced back and all that fun stuff. You know, some people even say that theoretically they have God's blood within them, Greek gods. And each of the members of the legacy are a champion of a specific Greek deity. And by like a certain age, they are like officially inducted into the legacy with their powers. So in terms of my legacy, my mother, who is Costandina Kalanothos, the current Hyra is still active. I'm doing air quotes with my hands that you can't see.
Sure.
Because I imagine she got taken.
Okay.
Then,
so she is gone. She is vanished.
Yeah, she is vanished.
Okay. So what we're dealing with is kind of the non-literal ghost of her presence for you. Okay.
Then there's my grandfather, Alexandros Kanothos II, who I am directly named after, and the last Andros, which is like they kind of have like the names get passed down. Like Ephivos isn't my name; it literally means like teenager, and it's like sort of a status or an age gap, kind of like a Kid Flash kind of vibe. And so Andros and Kyria are like the male female lead names that get passed. So his grandfather was the last Andros and is retired and quite judgmental. And I have an idea for the other one, but I also want to check in because I know we have some lines and veils that might play with this.
Sure.
And how we handle this. So I'm actually gonna do my first backstory first because it kind of ties into it a little. If that's okay. So on the 13th birthday, you're supposed to be like inducted into the family legacy. That's when you first get the Ephivos title, and unbeknownst to the general populace, that is when a Greek pantheon member comes down to you and picks you, and that's usually when you get your armor and your weapon and things like that. It didn't go exactly as planned. No one came. No one seemed to pick him. And so that was like a huge sort of issue. So he's kind of still a Vivos, but he has no signia. He's missing, the armor and the weapon. And it's kind of an uncomfortable vibe in the family. And there's some concern. There's been probably some bad, unfun dynamic that went on, some fighting perhaps within the family about, how this might have happened or why. Alexandros, I think, blames my mother's husband, my father,
Hmm.
who is not Greek and is, I was thinking, was more like a Beacon-esque kind of hero.
Okay.
And so I think there was some sort of not niceness with that, and the boy being too soft kind of vibes. And so the reason why I say that transitions is I think he got a late in life younger sister uh after his birthday, his 13th birthday. So I think she would be, or have been, which is why I'm kind of phrasing like this and checking in, maybe like 3 or 4, or maybe a little older, like 5, 5, 6 or something, who is the next possible member of your legacy. But I think one of the big things is despite being so young, she had already been chosen, which was a big thing, and that makes me then question, has she been taken, or is she still there? And I want to check in with that because we don't really know too much about the extinction, and I know harm to children, I believe, is a veil. So I want to like just check in about how people vibe with that.
I think if the idea is that she's still present, but maybe wasn't taken because she hasn't fully come into her power. And I think maybe that's something you're worried about is that you lack the people who could help her come into her power, and also clearly she was chosen. I mean, with the harm to children veil, we probably won't put her in peril. But I'm cool with her being kind of a social thing for you. Does that sound cool?
Cool, because I had sort of had the idea that she might have been taken in the extinction, but I don't know if that's something people would be comfortable with, and that's why I wanted to check if that's a thing or not.
With the harm to children, I prefer that she not be taken.
Okay, no, 1,000%. So she's still there. She's probably, will put her in like the 4 to 7 kind of child on a TV show range. She's not actually fighting, but she has, I have my idea that she was chosen by like Artemis. So she's probably got a very cute little bow and arrow she's messing around with that she was, gifted by Artemis kind of vibes.
Let's do the rest of your backstory, and then I have some questions about that.
Sounds good. All right, where were we? Player characters. What's the greatest accomplishment of your legacy? The greatest accomplishment of our legacy was done by my grandfather, the last title holder of Andros. He destroyed, I've also put this in quotes so you can have fun with this however you will, lol, the overbearer who tried and got very close to enslaving all of humanity. Then, how does the public perceive your legacy? I would say the legacy has been going since the inception, kind of in heroes of this town, like the first Andros and Tyria stepped up it was like a very quick thing. So I think it's a beloved, trusted, and honored group in the hero community is how it's perceived by the public. They kind of are the superhero community. I think they're looked to with a sort of Superman, Wonder Woman kind of vibe.
Okay.
Then how does your legacy tie into your reason for being a hero? There was no choice but to be a hero. It's the family way. We have the best wealth of power, and it's our duty to uphold society with them via the ideals of our gods. Why do you care about the team? Despite my Alexandros or Xander, as his friends sometimes call him, he considers it his shame is the fact that he doesn't have, a champion god. They do not look upon me with pity or disdain.
So, how long ago did this sort of Passover happen? Like a couple of years ago, or
I would,
13th? 13. You say that was when you're 13. So how old is he now?
So I would say he's in the 16, 17 kind of range. So 3-4 years ago.
And how did he react? Like, what was his?
It was not great. I think he tried to smile through it. He's always been a very polite, traditional kind of young man. But it was rough. It was very hard. There was a lot of crying into pillows. There was a lot of then compensating for it, working very hard, moving very hard, really trying to kind of, do everything he could without saying it to prove what he felt was his inadequacies.
And Where does he live now? Does he live with his grandfather? Does he live on his own? Are there other family members that he lives with?
So I think there's like a very big kind of traditional family home with like Grecian columns and a whole shebang. And he lives with I think a grandfather. And then I was thinking maybe there's a sidekick or something that isn't directly tied to the family that's also kind of around because his grandfather is elderly.
Okay.
And his mother and father have poofed, as have any, aunts, uncles, or cousins. Because yeah, they were all superheroes in the prime zone. And so it's just his grandfather, who is, I would say, is probably hobbled by some kind of injury, maybe wears a cane or a walker, and probably does not like that he has to do it. Who was around, and maybe either a sidekick or yeah, a sidekick, or
Okay.
someone from somewhere who comes in every now and then to this very
Do you think
large
a
home.
sidekick to your mother, or a sidekick to your father, or to your grandfather? Like, what are you imagining?
So I think it definitely not grandfather. And so I guess it depends on how contentious we want to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit contentious. It was probably my father's
Okay.
protege, which is an issue because I would imagine that my grandfather does not like him.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of bitter resentment between my father and my grandfather. Not that the public could ever see that or know about it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, we'll have to give them a name and put them in the tab, NBC tab as well.
Yes.
I think that's great. All right, I think that gives us what we need to know there.
All right.
We'll come back to you on relationships, influence, those questions. So that brings us, last but not least, to your character, Joe.
Cool. All right. So my character's name is Jenny Rell. Her superhero name is Purple Haze. So she's kind of I envision kind of a gothy type of, vibe to her. Her abilities are that she can kind of summon and control this sort of like poison, for lack of a better term, that affects people's emotions, causes them, it can sedate them, et cetera, like that, and it manifests itself as a purple haze. So hence the name. And let's see, moving down the line here. So moves. I've taken blowing off steam. When you commit a misdemeanor or small victimless crime, you may clear a condition of your choice. And the second one is dark past. When you confess to a serious crime you committed as a villain, while in the presence of someone involved, shift danger up and any other label down. Say what you did and choose a list of things there.
All right.
Let's see. So I have a jump to the extras. So the reformed gets some friends in low places.
Okay.
So she has 3 friends, and they each come with sort of a specialty. And then I had to mark 2 obligations for one of them and 1 obligation for the other. And it sounds like when those obligations fill up, they won't help me anymore until I do something for them.
Okay.
So the first person is Mad Magpie, who
Okay.
is I envision them as sort of a black market, someone who procures and deals in alien technology. Currently, she has no obligations to Mad Magpie.
Okay. I like that.
And then the second one is Tegan Queen. I think I just picked them right off the list.
Okay.
So I wasn't. So Tegan Queen specializes in insider info. So I envision another sort of an informant, somebody who can get information. I kind of thought it, and I don't know, I'm open to whatever, but in my head, I kind of thought maybe they work at like a club or something like that, where they can get, they have access to lots of different information and stuff like that.
Sure.
So she currently has 1 obligation with Tegan. And
Okay.
then the final one is Lovelace, who specializes in weapons. procuring weapons for people. And she currently has 2 obligations to Lovelace.
So let's talk about let's walk through your backstory. Like I like that you got this idea that, I mean, you're connected into a criminal underground, a criminal network that parts of it are still around even after the extinction. These are the people who service the supervillain world. So tell us about your backstory.
Okay, so I want to check in on this because I didn't see it in Lines or Veils, but I don't want to step on anything that offends anyone or whatever. But I kind of had envisioned her as somebody who maybe was in the foster care system, didn't have an orphan, doesn't have parents. So, but I also wanted to be sensitive if that touched on anybody's thing. So I just didn't want to just throw that out there without checking in.
Looks like we're good at this moment. I think that's good.
Cool. So from a backstory, she was mentored into supervillainy by a supervillain called the Ace of Spades, sort of a techno hacker sort of supervillain, and kind of like took her under his wing when she was a teenager. She was obviously, open to anyone who would, I think a classic charismatic individual who showed interest where in a world where nobody showed interest. So she jumped on board, did a lot of like petty crime and other crime. Her abilities were useful because, she could be very good at basically, breaking into places, using her powers to essentially put everybody down, and they could steal things, etc. So that's kind of like how she got into villainy and that sort of thing. If it's still okay, I like the idea of the person who showed her that she could do good was Alexandros. And I have an idea maybe about that, and I'll jump if it fits into something further down in the story. So what was my goal as a villain? What her goal is she just wanted to become rich, have power, and kind of sow anarchy out into the world. She wasn't really, that's really all she wanted to do. So she was she did not have a higher agenda other than just, being kind of a badass and coming from sort of the wrong side of the tracks. She wanted money, she wanted power, those sort of things. So that I think was her agenda. What caused you to switch sides? I think what happened is that she was betrayed by the Ace of Spades, discovered essentially that he didn't really care about her, was just using her. And this is where I was thinking it could tie in with I'm gonna try to pronounce Ephivos, thank you. That basically in some sort of major, I don't know if you call it like battle or heist or something like that, he kind of left her for dead there, kind of threw her to the wolves, so to speak. And I was thinking that might be a good moment in where Effie Voss maybe helped her, saw something, rescued, or found her when it was over, something like that. That might be where that connection could have come in. But again, I'm open to whatever. So ultimately, I think what happened is Ace of Spades was kind of a dick and wasn't really who she thought he was. And that's how she kind of chose to kind of switch sides. And why do I care about the team? And it's pretty simply, they accepted me when no one else would.
Where do your powers come from? Do you know? Do you not know? What do you like? What do you imagine?
So one thought I had was that this idea that it's, I don't know whether it's, that they're part of her, right? That she can kind of summon this from inside of her. I
Okay.
like this idea of that when she goes to invoke her powers, her eyes might turn purple. You could see, maybe sometimes you could see like in her veins under her skin, this sort of purple sort of thing. But I think maybe she doesn't even know. She's just, at some point it was a thing and she doesn't really know why.
Does she think it's a mutation? Does she think it's magic? Does she think something was done to her? What does she imagine it is?
I think she probably thinks it's some sort of mutation. She probably thinks of herself as a bit of a, being a late teens, little bit of a freak, so to speak, sort of that kind of feeling like, what's wrong with me? But
Yeah. So what scares you about your power?
um that I was gonna say that I could go too far, but she was a villain, so I'm not sure that vibe's there.
Well,
But
you are a delinquent, so that means a reasonable thing that you
yeah,
found a line and you're afraid that
yeah,
your powers could get stronger.
right, yeah, or
Okay.
maybe that they would take over, right? That
Mm.
they would, that and take her back to where she was.
Uh, where is she living now?
So that's a good question.
I will volunteer as tribute. I've got a giant empty house. And I think it's one of the first times maybe that I've disobeyed my grandfather by letting you live with us.
So crashing on the family's couch, so to speak.
There's guest bedrooms. You're good. You have a room.
Cool.
Okay. I like that. So you've got this kind of awkward makeshift family, a place to crash that's not your own, but it's nicer than any place you've ever been. There's a nice set of contradictions there. Awesome. I think that gives us what we need to know. So we're going to come around back to you about relationships. So we're going to swing back to the start. And I'm going to have everybody do one of their relationships and then the other. And again, you can throw this out, or if you have a thought that somebody might particularly fit in with it, you can say that. So let's start with Yanu.
Okay. My first relationship question is: blank's ways are unorthodox. When they're not baffling me, they're infuriating me.
Thoughts?
I can toss Summer at that if you like.
I mean,
Summer is very much a modern teenage girl. I suspect that this is not how, what's his name? Yanu. Yanu is used to society working.
yes, your modern world confuses and frightens him.
As well, they let themselves be possessed by some sort of spirit.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah.
That's usually bad news. I'm just fair warning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really cool between the modern teenage vibe and the thing where you're really cool with some sort of ancestor spirit randomly possessing you. Yeah, you're confusing.
Nice. So next is Ghost Girl.
Yeah. So I think Blank has an unusual reaction to my friend, and I'm trying to figure it out. It should be noted here that I first read that as having a negative reaction to the friend, but it could in fact be a positive reaction to the friend.
Mm-hmm.
Just any sort of weird reaction to the friend. Anyone think they have feelings about this?
I think Greek history has like a much different reaction to sort of ghosts and how we view spirits and things like that.
Mhm.
So I think that that could be interesting. But I also think I could possibly help with the other one, so I don't know if I should voice in because I think the other one could also work very well for him.
I could go either way on those.
Both good. Which do you lean towards, Marley?
Um, let's see. Maybe we have Alex as the unusual reaction, and then we can hold that cross paths for someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Muted myself. Then we come to Effie votes. Which one of your relationship questions do you want to deal with first?
Point of order, I'm having trouble editing that blank space. Am I
Okay.
supposed to put the name in the white space after it?
Yeah, because it has that
Okay.
lookup.
Okay, I see.
Sure. So Kay, which one do you want to work through first?
I feel like this is kind of let's see. Kind of a little too easy, but I was thinking you once got caught doing something that shames your legacy with blank. And we do have a reformed who has drug powers. Mind altering drug powers. That feels a little on the nose, but how do you feel about that, Joe?
I'm all for it. Plus, I have a panache for misdemeanors and chicanery. So
Oh yeah. Did I have my first alcohol with you?
maybe.
Wait. Do ancient Greeks have issues with alcohol?
The ancients don't, but modern society rule followers do.
14-year-olds should, and so or however old 16-year-olds.
I like that. I think that provides kind of a complicated relationship there. Let's come back to the start.
Did
Oh,
Joe do one?
Nope.
oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Because I'm doing this different order in my head. So which of those do you want to deal with? Purple Haze.
So the obvious one seems like, so I'd say I've earned the trust of blank and I follow their example of what a hero should be. Based on everything else he's done, is Ephios feels obvious, but I don't want to be sure there's lots of interactions. So I don't know how you feel about that. Okay.
I mean, I'm totally fine with it. But if you also want to give it to someone else, I totally understand if you want to try and spread the love a little. I think it does make very much logical sense. But yeah.
Yeah, unless anybody else has another thought on that, I think that sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always happy to offer up my character for whatever, but yeah, I feel like that would be a bit of a stretch.
Yes. All right. So that does bring us back to Skirmish / Yanu. What's your other relationship question?
Blank enjoys the story of my previous era. We meet up for story time as often as we're able. So who likes listening to old timey, like quasi mythological story time with Jan?
I would, if I would think that might be interesting. You know, it might appeal to that sort of like never really had parents sort of vibe of hers, so it might that might work for me. She's soft on the inside.
I like that. Absolutely.
In Yana's experience, most people are. Once you punch through, that's not what you mean.
Yeah. And then you chose embraced for your influence.
Yes.
Okay. So Ghost Girl, Purple Haze, Ephivos, under influence on, go ahead and write in skirmish because you will have influence over skirmish. Ghost Girl, what is your second relationship question?
It is. I'd crossed paths with blank just after I'd met my friend, and they helped me come to terms with my situation. So the extinction had just happened. We've got this teenager hearing things and seeing things, and who takes pity on this poor human?
I mean, it could be hilarious if Yanu was the one who said, "Yeah, you are haunted. That's what your problem is. There is a ghost following you around, a spirit of your ancestors. You should probably have somebody, talk to them for you."
So
But
maybe through a negative example, they helped you come to terms.
yes, this is bad. You should get that. You should get that looked into by your, by your spiritual advisor of choice.
My what now? Okay, yeah.
Okay. And then, so you begin with your friend having influence over you. And then you get to choose one teammate who you're drawn to, despite worrying that your friend might understand. Who do you think that is?
Well, in the interest of spreading everything around, I'm going to go with Jenny.
Okay. So Jenny, you'll write in that you have influence over Ghost Girl.
Incidentally, we hadn't talked about this, but how are we feeling about characters having crushes on each other? Because, hot mess teenagers.
Yeah, I put stuff on the section in lines and veils myself.
Yeah. So there is a romance matrix there. I forgot to mention that during the safety tab.
Oh,
so if you have a chance, fill that in. Ephivos, what do you want for your other relationship question?
Yeah, I think given how things have gone, I think it would be fun if it was a skirmish. I think it could be very interesting because he sort of comes from a culture that sort of mimics a lot of where my family lineage is. So I feel like he can sort of understand that. He's also kind of displaced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I particularly told him about my shame, which is the sort of important secret where, like, you know, you get these, but then at a certain point you're supposed to get this, and that is how this legacy, traditionally works. But here I am with nothing, and here's my tiny babby sister who got it way too soon.
Awesome. And then you give influence to all your teammates over you.
Yes,
so
I do.
Ephivos, everyone can write in Ephivos is having influence over them. And that brings us to Purple Haze.
All right. This is the big one. I did something terrible to blank once. I hope they can forgive me one day. So I'll just put that out there. I have, if anybody wants to have been the victim of some terrible misdeed of mine.
I mean, sure.
I think it was something use your powers on them jokingly or something else? What do you imagine there?
Um, hmm.
And does she know it's you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does say,
Steal something from them.
yeah, it says I hope they can forgive me one day. So I think I assume based on context that they know, but um,
Did they
uh,
go to the same high school?
hmm. Yeah, maybe it would be sort of a maybe I um maybe I used a little bit of my power on them to um right when we first met. Um and uh to try to influence how they felt. Something like that, right? To
Influence how they felt, or do you think influence how others perceive? Like, I mean, if you were trying to
um
maybe make yourself look good, and one way to do that is by embarrassing somebody else.
yeah.
Which do you like? Like, what are you leaning towards with that?
I don't know. I'm struggling with this one a little bit because
Look,
that doesn't seem
I
terrible.
think.
That doesn't seem terrible, to be honest with you.
Well, here, let's have you put in Ghost Girl, and I think if we just put, I mean, we know that it was something at the high school. Maybe we'll find out on screen what that was if we can do a flashback to that at some point, or what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, if maybe it's something, maybe she did something to mess up. You know, if if it's if it's um if it's Ghost Girl, maybe it's something given that she's sort of like very into, the whole um fashion popularity thing. Maybe she did something to mess up prom or something like that, right? And I don't know, maybe something like
Yeah,
that. If that's okay. I mean,
Marley.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Another thing is I've been fleshing out a little bit of her family life, and yeah, so I think she actually is like one of the rich kids at the high school. Um, if we want to play into the stereotypical resentments that might happen, so you know, maybe in a in a fit of jealousy or something like that. Yeah, something had happened.
I
yeah,
like that.
maybe.
Also happy to play to find out.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Going home tomorrow.
So do you talk openly about your days as a villain?
Um,
Check it.
no.
Then figure out.
I
Right.
think
bills
no.
on credit card.
No.
Oh my
I think
God.
I'll give influence to Ephios because they're
Okay.
the one who I give the example that I follow.
So Ephios, go ahead and write that in. All right.
That could also so do we all know they used to be this villain then? Or do the rest of us not know?
Yeah, like what do you think? I mean, there's a difference between talking openly or telling them. What do you think?
Um, so I had, when we get to the when our team first came together question, I had a thought about that, and
Okay.
so um, when we get to that point, Lowell, I'll pitch what I was going to say, and then we can decide if it meets the criteria, and then it will answer that question.
Okay. That seemed reasonable. So that gives us all of those bits. Let us come to the when our team first came together. Timeline wise, we know that you came together after the extinction. You've been together for a little while. So Chris, what is your when our team first came together question?
Okay. When our team first came together, we discovered a way to send me back to my old time, but it was destroyed. How or who destroyed it?
What do you think it was, and what happened?
Um, hmm. I would like to think, since magic was what sent me forward, I think the thing that might have sent me back was something, super technological. Because I know we've got a couple of mentioned a couple of things that might deal in alien technology. Like I'm pretty sure one of Purple Haze's contacts deals in alien technology.
Okay.
So it could have been something. It could have been something related to some sort of alien tech, and it was destroyed in part of the fight.
Was it one of your teammates that destroyed it? Was it a villain that destroyed it? Was it a rival that destroyed it?
I think it might have been the villains.
Okay.
Like it was something that they were using, and they didn't want, for whatever reason, we might not know, but they chose to destroy it rather than have it be captured.
Who was this villain? This tech villain?
Hmm. Let me think. I think it was basically someone who does a lot of parts scavenging.
Okay.
Um, so
So he probably ran into a tech villain who does this kind of meta salvage, stopped them while they were doing that. Let's call them just Pack Rat for the purposes of this. And you had the opportunity, but they broke this device that could have sent you back. Ghost Girl, let's have you add on to this. What is your when our team first came together question?
Mine is my friend manifested something I'd never seen before. What was it, and how did it shift the battle?
Ooh.
So I think maybe that was the first time that Boo and Ghost Girl merged. So I think before that, she was just sort of helping out as this person who had some extra, sensory skills and could kind of figure out what's going on a supernatural level. So was helping out that way, but didn't have any particular powers beyond that. And then, things were looking grim, and suddenly she started, they merged, and suddenly she had this nimbus around her, and um, started hovering in the air, and you know hair whipping in the non-existent wind, and eyes turning black, and starts manifesting various powers.
Awesome. I like that. Ephivos, what is your team question here?
So I'm struggling with it a little, again, given our setting.
Sure.
It's all things considered, we did well and impressed an established hero. Who was it?
Yeah, so this would be a hero who survived, who has kind of, since the extinction, either has emerged or like has come out of retirement or something. Who would that be?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so someone who's come out of retirement. Or let's see. I think how do you feel about this? I think it was someone who was off planet
Okay.
when the event happened and sort of came back.
Yeah.
But since our team had sort of it sounds like to me maybe formed before the event?
Team formed
Oh.
after the event.
After the event. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so they would have been off, I'm thinking they were off planet. And I want to say they're like a Martian Manhunter-esque figure.
Okay.
I'm having a little trouble with the name.
Sure. But like one of the few pre-extinction heroes with significant powers, but an alien who came back, who approved. Like how did he? Sorry. Let's go. He, she, they.
Let's go they them.
They, them. Okay. How did they like express or show you their reaction?
I think they had come to help, but it seemed we had sort of taken on the issue and had it settled before they had come here. I imagine they're a bit overworked given the whole situation. And it was very much sort of a clap on the back, you did your mother and father proud. Your team, is standing in great significance amongst the trials of our moment.
Awesome. I like that. And we'll figure out a name for them. Joe, for Purple Haze, what is your team question?
We fought a terrible enemy from my old life. Who was it, and what did they take from me? So my thought was, probably because I've been watching all of these commercials for Mrs. Davis, I was thinking that given the Ace of Spades, one of the things he had, being a techno hacker, he had created sort of like a supercomputer AI thing that was kind of unleashed and then went rogue. I'm calling it Mother.
Okay.
And what they took from me was, I'm kind of thinking that maybe right away when Ephios found me, didn't really know if I was a villain or not. But when we were fighting the evil supercomputer and its minions, they exposed me as a former supervillain to everyone.
Ooh.
Took away sort of my anonymity of who, and of that.
I will say, I think
I had to take a
it
car
did not
surface home.
change how I viewed you, and I think it was very much like this. That may have been who they are, but this is who they are now, and this is who their true sort of, individuals are, kind of vibes. Like I think he stood tall with her.
Nice. So Pack Rat raiding a base turned out to be one of the Ace of Spades bases. Woke up Mother, and a big fight occurred there that you were all caught in the middle of. Do you think Mother escaped or was captured?
I think we don't know.
Okay.
I think maybe I like the idea of maybe we think we killed Mother. It's one of those scenes, like at the end of the scene, we think we did it, and then we all leave, and then the little light comes on
Yeah.
on the thing, right? So maybe we think we took care of Mother, but maybe not. So
Perfect. All right. So we have got our characters set up. I'm going to give everybody 2 pieces of homework here for next time. We're going to start into scenes, but when we go to do that, I want you to all think of another super being who is still around or has emerged since the extinction, so we can kind of populate the world a little bit. Maybe low powered, maybe maybe returned, maybe regained powers, anything like that. But have everybody come up with one of those. The other thing is, you have a rival team.
Ooh.
Okay. I want everybody to come up with a rival on this rival team. So those are the 2 things I'm going to ask you for at the start of the next session. Does that sound okay?
I love it.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
Can fleshing out either both or my Martian Manhunter or my parental unit's former sidekick be good for those NPC, or do you want a third person?
It is up to you.
Okay.
It's however much effort you want to do.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll start get rolling on this next time. I'm very excited about this. I'm not going to do stars and wishes because this is kind of our session 0 character creation. But we will get into that next time. Other thing I want to say is if between now and next session you're like, oh, I wish I had chosen this, feel free to make those shifts. We're not locked in. You have the opportunity to make those changes. And we'll get rolling next time. Sound good?
I have one more question. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
Should we like for this rival team be like straight up like picking a playbook, or are we just like describing them?
I think just describing them.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to model it on one of the playbooks, that's cool too. But at base, just so we kind of know who they are at least.
Sounds good.
And so you want us to each come up with a member of the team? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I want you to come up with a super being who's around, villain or hero or whatever, as well as a rival. Your age, part of an opposing team kind of thing.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording.